Smile, bro.
Hello, everybody. This is 100% theory and 100% practice. And this week I have my first guest. His name is Constantine. And we are going to talk a lot about the self in relation to itself and the self in relation to others. And the reason why I have Constantine today is because he is writing a tremendous novel of his journey, hero journey. I'm going to let him talk more about that. But in this journey, we will have a lot of stories and scenarios in which we can analyze what is the identified self, or how to reach from the identified self to the desired self, to the authentic self. Anyways, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Constantine Kadel, who has been my very close brother, very best friend since 2012, in which we did the yoga training. Welcome, Constantine.
Well, thank you so much. Nice to see you.
Very nice to see you. So I really appreciate you being here, and I am looking forward to our haphazard discussion about who we really are. And and this brings out, a lot of topics, but as we are going to start, I would like to start a little diagram here on the whiteboard so we have an idea about what we are talking about. And basically today we are going to talk about three different types of yourself in relation to others. And in a broad category, this also connects to, in psychology, the attachment styles, which is basically, the first one is the anxious attachment style. And then we are going to categorize it under codependence. And the second one will be avoidant. And then also, just to give the first flag in the beginning, I'm going to categorize three, but no people is just one. You can be a combination of all three, or a combination of two, or your relationship with your friends might be in one category, whereas your relationship with your family members can be in another category. So we are going to try to analyze all that and try to come up how they actually are presenting in our lives. So the avoidant attachment style, and it will go with this term, ultra independence. I'm hoping I'm spelling it right. It feels like there should be an E. And so basically the anxious is the attachment style, and the codependence is the trauma response that it shows up in relationships. Avoidant is the attachment style, and the ultra-independent personality is kind of more along the sides of its trauma response. And the final one, that if there's a goal, or if there's a safe way of having relationship with others, is the secure relationship, in which an individual has its own autonomy and they have realized who they are. And in this structure, because as a man living out its divine masculinity role, and as a woman living out their divine feminine role in life, then things kind of goes like a zipper as well, and then they complement each other. So in that case, we have a secure attachment style, and I think the behavior of it is called interdependence. Let's say, and then let's draw a nice line here, a nice straight line if I can, because these dramatically change within our relationship to, let's say here, friends or others. And then on this side we have family members, and that's it. Let's say family members, or like closer people in the circle. This is going to be the theme that our conversation will try to evolve itself. I hope it makes sense. And my main goal is to start with understanding these two keys, just so we can talk about it, and then I will extend the questions to Constantine, in which or how he can reflect on these. Let's start with why there is a difference between friends and others. Why our behavior is different. Let me stop the share. Why our behavior is a bit more different in relation to the others outside of the house people, and this could also include somebody who is a good friend of yours that turns into somebody who became your roommate. So what happens in this case is, when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you make yourself look presentable, and after that you leave the house. And it is the same thing with others. You do the same thing with your personality. You bring yourself from your higher self to the concentrated version of the persona, because I am Abdul Wahid and I am such person. And anytime I'm interacting with the outer loop of my life, I know that I'm in the outer loop, so I'm functioning from the higher part of my brain, and I'm making sure that I am living out the persona that they think I am. But this mask can only stay for so long. So when somebody gets from the outer circle to the inner circle, then they start to deal with my primitive brain. And the primitive brain is, you build your social interactions over life, and because you always have social interactions, it's easier to evolve. But the primitive brain, which learned everything about life, let's say, mostly before the age of 7 years old, still functions in the same manner. So like from the executive brain, we are now diving deeper or like lower into the limbic brain, in which the emotions and the traumas are all out there. So in this regard, I would like to just ask, I would like to ask Constantine, because it has been since the pandemic especially, and all along with his book, the entire journey has been noticing first what is my relationship with others, and I'm going to be honest too, understanding that my relationship with others was problematic at different levels. And the only way to solve those problems was that, hey, like, what is my relationship to me? And just living this journey and moving from the steps towards realizing the self, or at least like realizing the self might be too much of a ideal scenario, but like getting closer to your authentic self, being more comfortable in your own shoes. And how does this journey feel to actually, because it's so easy for me to speak about, hey, like at the end of the day, all your troubles are going to be solved if you know yourself. But how is that journey for you?
Thank you very much. It's quite extraordinary, due to the fact that I'm actually very conscious now of exactly where thoughts are coming from. For example, the writing contains an autobiographical journey from my youth, the ordinary world, throughout my teens and 20s into a special world, where I was faced with obstacles, difficulties, and tests, and ultimately was able to depart this special world that was actually dangerous, and continued on my journey back to the ordinary world. And I continued this they call it the hero's journey in literary terms. It's actually more of a protagonist journey, in my opinion, for what I am writing. I'm writing as the protagonist. And it will be going all the way to present day life, okay? Approximately a few years ago, I entered into another special world where I was also faced with extreme obstacles, decisions, and extraordinary circumstances. And once again, through faith and patience, I was able to navigate through one of the most difficult situations in my life, which actually brought me to, how you say, rock bottom, psychologically. Because after 4 years in this special world, I was overloaded psychologically. Even though I was fully functioning, my brain was not working correctly. Okay. The reason why I'm writing the book is for that particular circumstance. And it wasn't planned that I was going to write this way. I'm not a professional writer. I never have taken literary courses. This is all something that's coming straight from my heart. And began when I was a youth in Massachusetts, a child, through the trauma at age 7 of divorce of my parents, which ultimately led to a lot of resentment, anger, shame, and guilt that I kept as a child in my subconscious, and had sports, athletics, and physical activity as an outlet to stay healthy and to appease this pain or the feelings I didn't want to feel that were in my subconscious. And this went on for my entire life, to say the least. Ultimately, after this rock bottom episode a few years back, I said, you know, I really wanted to understand where I'm coming from, where this came from, and why did I get to the point where I let myself hit rock bottom? Was it God's will? Is it something I did? What is this? It was such an extraordinary situation that I felt extremely compelled to write for myself, therapeutically, but to process, to grieve, and to ultimately move on to what you would explain as interdependence. Because throughout my entire life, I've seen patterns of codependence and ultra independence, as you explained, which were basically out of, you know, these are actions out of fear of not being good enough, fear of losing, or fear of, you know, basically being abandoned, okay? Stuff like this. The list can go on. So to make a long story short, this book started 7 months ago. Well, actually now it's been 7 months of writing, full-time writing. And basically I'm psychoanalyzing from very early on in my youth, all my relationships, situations, traumas, joys, ups, downs, and my faith journey, because faith is also a number one subject matter in this book, is my faith journey. So I've realized that through relationships with my family of origin, relationships, dating relationships with women, relationships with my teammates as a long-term football and ice hockey player my entire life into my middle 30s. And I have different relationships and with all these different types of groups. The team aspect is something that what I'm realizing was more and more and more crucially significant in the development, in my personal development, to be around a character building group of people, which really helped me. But the reality is, throughout the first 300 pages, which is where I'm at, I have a long way to go, actually. I'm approximately 50% somewhere around there, finished at around 300 pages. And obviously with the edits and all this stuff, it's going to be a much different situation in a few months. But codependence is a major theme. It's not something that I expected to start writing about. But as I continue writing about the patterns that I recognized more than 10 or 15 years ago and continued after recognizing them, this is a pattern. Walking into walls continuously, walking into walls continuously. This is not the way to seek interdependence, in my opinion. Interdependence seems almost like a fantasy in the world that we're living in today. But it is possible.
Yeah.
And, we all, I think even the most healthy people, couples, men, women alike, everybody has traits of codependency within their relationships, family, or workers or spouses. I really, truly believe that. And ultimately, being dependent on a dependent person is not the healthy aspect. We want interdependence, something I've been working on now for more than probably 15 years. And the writing is now an opportunity for me to talk about the things I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna tie to that point because when we talked, you said, "Hey, like, what are you writing about?" And then your answer is that I'm writing about the things that I don't want to talk about. So I'm
That's
going
correct.
to first give a parenthesis for our listeners that these works that you basically facing yourself or meeting yourself where you are, and Constantine said it perfectly to you, like in the beginning you didn't even know that you were functioning from that space, and later on, even though you know that you are functioning from that space, you still don't have the controls to manage it. So
Right.
what it really takes for you to start to have ownership of your behavior and of yourself, it has to start with having that compassion and respect and sincerity with yourself. So nothing is just diving in, and there is no end goal of, hey, like, I just want to be this person. These are just things that we have to be aware of ourselves. And when we talk about trauma, we only talk about how trauma subconsciously negatively affect us. But on the flip side of trauma, there is the engravings of your character and personality, which has the gems for you to shape who you really are, for you to bring out whatever your gift is, because everybody is unique. So should what they bring. But as we are talking about all these things, these are just existing not because of trauma, but because of an innate desire to belong. As the self and the human being, we like to be, we desire to be, we actually have an instinctive need to be belonging to something else. And when this belonging in the early childhood is not structured in an emotionally healthy way, then basically you carry on those wounds. And the other day I was thinking about pain and your relationship to pain, right? And you notice that you don't have a relationship with pain. And furthermore, you notice that the relationships that you do not have are basically governing your life. Because the part of me that is codependent, the part of me that is Oh, by the way, let's just make a quick description of what is codependence. Is pretty much a bit more easier to understand. It's human pleasing behavior, making sure that everything is fine so you get your needs met. But when it comes to ultra independence, that is a harder thing to find, because in this case we have to dive back to how your relationship with others versus how your relationship with the kids and family. Because the ultra independent person is also another version of a codependent person, but the ultra independent person is dependent on the opinion of so many other friends. And as if I'm codependent and I want my spouse, I want my parents, I want my kids to appreciate me, then my circle is very small and it's relatively manageable because I'm dependent on them. But if I'm dependent on the idea that I'm a free-spirited person, I don't care about this, and I am like, oh, move on to the next, travel, work, everything, then this is a bit more undercover, because on the outside you are strong. Like that's also why we have so many people is like, oh, that was such a great person. I don't know why they fell down like this, like either mentally or any other way. But because you are not even aware of your dependency, because like, look at this. There is like, we get mad at teenagers and millennials and whoever to try to gain social status through social media channels. But it is the same thing, just a different color of what we have always done as humans. Because if it wasn't likes on Instagram, then it was my score in school, then it was my appreciation of parents on me, that was something. So now that it is more out and about and can be visibly seen, the ultra independence part is harder to notice, because if I'm going through something that I should go through, if I need to face that, hey, like, you have to look at yourself in this manner, and those soft voices like, hey, like, you are wasting your life. Nobody has the capacity to listen to this voice within them. Nobody has the capacity to feel the pain within them. So the relationships that you do not have with these parts of your life are actually what is governing your life. But the second you can sit down, and then that voice who never tries to persuade you, but always insistent, saying that, hey, you can make better things out of yourself. And then once you stop blaming and shaming yourself, once you stop feeling bad about this voice, and then, there's more to life, maybe I can make this a little bit better. So rather than that, I do the first denial of, this is a bad voice, I have to think, and then ignoring of it, and then taking everything out of it, looking at its reality. And within that reality, also accepting of your own limits, that gives you the first step. And what was the first step for you to understand that, yeah, I'm the king of my life? And then, I also know that you always had a good, close relationship with God. So it is a little bit easier to discern once you have a divine perspective within your heart. But from more materialistic, more worldly point, what was that tipping point which you are like, yep, my life is great, rock and roll, which when you thought your life was great, it really was great. So I'm not taking anything away from the experiences that was lived. I have that same thing. It was great for that time. But like right now, in which you understood that, okay, others' worldview define who I am, to I define who I am, to I don't even know who I am. So I have to learn more about myself. Like, how is that journey? If you were to,
That's a great question. I appreciate the question, and I can answer that on a personal level and also for my for the book. So the first, I guess, for aha moment is that what you want to call it? Something that opened my eyes to, you know, specific unhealthy patterns was in my dating relationships. And I was basically in a dating relationship back 2005, 2006 or 2007. And the relationship came to a rocky end. Nothing was really, you know, it was codependent, which I didn't even understand the term at that point. You know, I didn't understand pretty much anything, and I thought I was in full control, and that, you know, my life was great. I was graduated college, and you know, I had my own house, my car. I go to my job. You know, I have good friends. I have good family. I mean, come on, life looks great. You know, I'm waking up every morning. You know, there's no danger. I'm not in a war zone. I'm not in the ghetto where I have to watch my back okay. And I was hurt after walking into the walls relationally again and again after a few, you know, unhealthy dating relationships over the years. So I decided that through faith, which was a major, major integral part of everything, is my faith journey. And I was really listening and reading and studying about psychology with different groups. And I realized the most important thing to do was I had to do something objectively in order to start to make a change. So the first thing I did was I went and I started talk therapy, which I did for 52 weeks, one straight year, once a week. And at that point, I started gaining tools, for example, learning about boundaries, something I didn't even know what a boundary was. What is a boundary? I didn't know that saying no was a boundary because I was a people pleaser. So there's a lot of actions in this part. I thought I was doing good, helping people, doing good, going out of my way, but this was not the case. I learned that people pleasers, you know, is just another codependent action within myself to be a people pleaser. And codependently, sexually codependently, mentally, psychologically codependent. I started to use tools like guided imagery, which were actually rewiring my brain which was extraordinary. I think one of the strongest tools ever is guided imagery, and started doing objective work, attending men's groups, different types of faith-based programs, to the point where I ended up building my own men's group, and we did a 12-week program called Healing is a Choice, and 7 of my yogis got together and opened up for some of them the first time. And so this went on and this went on, and I continued to do objective work, but I continued to, you know, the patterns weren't really changing so dramatically. And the reality was that I actually, at one point, went back. I went backwards and fell back into old patterns, where it brought me to the point that psychologically I had a complete breakdown. So what I like to explain as the subconscious mind, or the prison that's in the subconscious mind, and all of the fear, all of the shame, all of the guilt, everything that I don't want to feel or everything that I never wanted to talk about are filed immediately into that prison and locked down, and they stay there. Well, I think the mental and psychological nervous breakdown came from the fact that the prison was overloaded. There was no more space, and there's riots, and people were getting killed in the prison, in this proverbial prison, and there's major fighting going on, and I can't control it. So that was rock bottom. And the two most important, significant, however you want to say, parts of this situation from a positive standpoint was that I had my faith. So faith was the only thing that I concentrated on. Instead of concentrating on my situation, focusing on my circumstance, I focused on God. And secondly, a practice I learned through Bikram yoga was to be still. And so physically, I was still. Psychologically, I was with God. I made the right decisions, thanks to God, to move and to do what I needed to do to exit this rock bottom situation and start to rebuild. Ultimately rebuild. I had no other choice. It's to rebuild. So there's one more part to this situation, is that after hitting the rock bottom psychologically for a year and a half, nothing really changed. I felt too broken. I was not searching out the resources I needed at that time to focus on my mental well-being. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have an opportunity, and I was probably in denial as well, still thinking that, everything's going to be fine. And a year and a half after that rock bottom is when I had a terrible accident, physical accident, where I was teaching yoga on a podium, about maybe a foot off the ground, and I slipped on the wooden floor and ultimately landed on the back of my neck at full speed, which gave incredible pressure and damage to my cervical spine and the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is something I know we've talked about on other mediums and stuff like this, but boy, oh boy, it's a control center for your life. So as soon as I had this accident, I acquired 24 hours of body tremors, nauseous, dizzy, vertigo, sick, digestive issues, concentration issues, emotional issues, all at the same time, times 10. Nerves firing and not firing throughout my body, as I've been used to as a high-level athlete my entire life. And so I was now still rock bottom psychologically. Nothing has changed other than the scenery. But now I am physically at rock bottom. And the symptoms from the neck injury became worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, until the point where I actually did not know if I was going to wake up in the morning, because the nerves that were not working throughout my body were not functioning. And as soon as one of that nerve that's supposed to go to the heart doesn't fire, I'm dead. It's a heart attack. They call it a heart attack, but it's a nerve. Okay? So I had only one choice, and that's to do the best I could to step up and do the objective work I needed to do, and objectively find the resources, and most importantly, community. Second to none. So these are tools that I've acquired from 15 years ago after a problem, girl problems and breakup problems and stuff like this, doing objective and character building work for over a decade, 15 years plus more, and then still experiencing these rock bottoms. So all of a sudden, a rock bottom on the psychological and a rock bottom on the physical, that doesn't leave me with much, bro. You know what I mean? It doesn't leave me with much, but I was still alive, and I have, you know, in my soul, the faith. It was a miracle for me, what happened in the last 2 years. I was able to find the resources in the most difficult time. I had everything I needed at my hand through faith. I worked full time, literally every single day, like it was the most important job in my life, to heal myself physically first, because if I'm not physical, I can't even deal with psychological. The great thing that happened, 18 straight months of rehabilitation for the neck, was ultimately and consciously the first time that I was teaching myself self-love for the first time. Self-care, true self-care, self-love, because I didn't have any other choice. And I realized that I had to learn to love myself. And that was my biggest part of rehab. I went into this rehabilitative state situation saying, whatever I can do to give myself love, I'm going to do it continuously. 18 months later, I fixed a neck injury that most people would never have survived. They would have been dead or in a wheelchair, guaranteed. It was unbelievable. And the interesting thing is that through the practice of self-love, and again, because I didn't have a choice, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to become enlightened and teach love. And no, man, I was going to die. I felt like I was going to die. I had no choice. It was out of desperation that if I didn't teach myself to love myself, I was going to die. So after 18 months, rehabilitating an injury that was extraordinary, through self-love, I started to realize that it was also working to rewire the negative thoughts in my brain and heal me psychologically and bring me back to the whole person that God intended me to be. And I tricked myself, because I know the physical body. I've been through, obviously, if you know me, multiple knee injuries and bicep injury and football injury, piece of cake for me. Put all those knee injuries and bicep injury and football injury together for the neck injury, doesn't even come close. And so, yes, I'm able to be back probably 99%. Now I realize it's like a metamorphosis, or it's almost a reawakening, a rebirth, that after all these years of my life, this is the first time I've taught myself what is self-love. So self-love has boundaries, and self-love is interdependent, okay? And self-love is not ultra independent for me. It has to be in community, and then now that I'm healthy and ultimately able to continue writing this book in a psychoanalysis way, every day going to the most deepest emotional part of that proverbial subconscious prison, every day that I'm writing every day.
Wow.
I'm processing every feeling since childhood that hurt me.
Wow.
And a lot of them are good story. A lot of the writing is positive and inspirational and faith based and family based and team based and just generally speaking, growing up listening to hip hop and loving Wu-Tang because I was in Staten Island and it just Wu-Tang became part of my life because I was living around the corner from these guys. In an extraordinary situation, working on Wall Street and finishing writing about the difficulties of being stuck working with white collar criminals for 5 years and thinking that I was going to, make something different and become famous or be, successful, and learned that was obviously not the right path. That's not the path that God intended for me. And thankfully, everything, I've been protected and I've worked really hard and to not cross the line that would have brought me deeper, but, want to flirt with the line as much as possible, So now I'm continuing to finish this book, and it will get all the way to the present day, and complete the journey of going from the ordinary world into the special world and then back to the ordinary world. And in this particular writing, I will do this multiple times. So it's almost like there's 4 or 5 books within one book, continuing to work to stay in community and do objective work. And the writing is therapeutic for me, processing, grieving every day. Every day I write, I'm processing. I come home, I grieve, and I move on, and I'm ready to start the next day. So it's like it's very therapeutic. It's very difficult. I was working in downtown New York during 9/11, spent time working on the 23rd floor of the World Trade Center. And it was extraordinarily difficult for me to write for 1 week about what had happened and where I was after working in the Trade Center, traveling to the World Trade Center, and ultimately, again, not being injured or killed. So these situations go on in life, and at this point in time, it's just to continue objective work, towards interdependence, healthy dating relationships, and self-love.
I mean, that's. I just want to get off a tangent to say that you basically didn't have a choice but to look within, and that's how the journey started. So
I had a choice in the beginning when I started doing the therapy, men's groups, codependence, and I went to Codependence Anonymous. I did all those. I had that choice. I made that decision. When I started to recognize patterns going back 10, 15 years ago. But now with the psychological rock bottom, I didn't do anything. I was just in survival mode. It was literally survival mode for me. But then when I injured my neck, there was 2 choices. Go and work through it. Obviously, it was so extreme that, that's another whole story in and of itself. Or shut down and give up or whatnot, and that the body would have shut down. My body would have shut down if I did not give the self-love. So yes, I didn't have a choice. I know God has plans for me. I have there's people in my life. I depend on me in different types of in all my situation, and I love myself. But I didn't have a choice. If I didn't do the work, I would never have healed this extreme injury. And I had the tools from going back to my early childhood. I have every tool I needed. The most important tool is faith. So through faith and by faith only, I was provided what I needed. I gave 100%, and that was the only thing. And that's it. But I didn't have a choice. It was life or death. After a psychological breakdown and then a physical breakdown, there was nothing left except for, and ironically, 2020 came, and it was the year I needed, with exact God's perfect timing, to work through 18 months of rehab by myself. So the great news is that it's psychologically and physically stronger, more conscious than I've ever been in my life. There's no question. It's like a metamorphosis. I'm like, there's no question that I'm built up from the bottom psychologically and physically. Like they say, from if you're rebuilding the car from the chassis. I was lucky if I had the chassis. And I rebuilt all the way back up to a brand new powder blue Rolls-Royce convertible. Okay. And that's how I feel.
That's awesome. So like, just one point I wanted to make is, this is just how life works, you know, like everything, even the things that you are doing, let's say, because you had already said it, like working with white collar criminal times, even at that time you were trying to heal yourself. So like jumping to this point and then judging the back with that, oh, like I did this, I did that, rather like looking at all of that, hey, like what need I was trying to, like what I was trying to do. It's not like I was trying to be famous, but it is like I was trying to maybe receive acceptance, you know, like when we really dive into the innate needs of the self, again, which will tie back to knowing who the self is, what the self is, then all of your journey immediately turns into a journey of healing, because at that point you are not judging it from any other perspective, but looking at life with acceptance, and then say that this is what had to happen for me to get to here. But from here, where do I go? So just to give one more example, it's the same thing with many people. I'm like, yeah, like, did you really wait until this injury to look at your life? But that's also a very judgmental statement, you know, like you had to do whatever you had to do and then you are here now. So in that regard, I would like to close this off with a short practice. We can just practice between you and I, and everybody else can follow. And this entire journey does not have to be, you don't have to wait for the highest high of your life. You don't have to wait for the lowest low of your life. You don't have to wait for any event, anything, any timeline. Basically, what you need to do is to meet yourself where you are. You know, if you are in pain, you have to meet yourself right there. If you are in ecstasy, then you have to meet yourself in there. If you are in deepest suffering, then you just have to have, like a mother, like a father in a way, like a parent in a way, you see your kid hurting, and then you are just there for them. You know, you are not trying to immediately fix anything. So that is the part of you that goes to that proverbial prison. And then maybe in the beginning, just open some space and eventually release some bars. And then maybe along the way, build some clothings, because the bad problem is, like, the second I start to do my inner work, I'm like, yeah, I'm releasing my prisoners, and then I feel entitled to give shit to everybody else around me. So that is not how it is. What you have to do is first go down there, calm them, get to know them, and then start to figure out how to open the door. Along the way, build bathrooms and clothing, so when they really, it's not who you are. There is like, oh, I don't have a filter. No, you do have to have a filter. because this is life, and then we are conscious human beings. So when you do that work with you, you have to take your time, get to know them, get to make them presentable. And then eventually, once they are presentable and then they forget their dark side, let's talk about fear. What is fear good for? Well, anytime I am fearful, I have extra fuel, I have extra discipline, I have extra awareness. So rather than fearing the concepts, and then like actually when that comes in, I embrace it, because fear is not like, it's not whispering to me anymore. Now fear comes in a suit, and then it presents me the case. You know what I mean? Those prisoners are functioning personas. Anyways, long story short, let's take a moment to sit down. And if it's okay, I would like to close my eyes, and you can close your eyes too if you like. And just quickly, because this is the self in relation to others, I oftentimes like to imagine getting hugs, because I feel two ways. When I give a hug, let's say to my mom, I feel like I am encompassing, keeping her secure, and just I am a shield for her to be whatever she needs to be within that shield. And when I receive a hug from my father, for example, I feel like he encompasses me. He kind of creates that shield around me, so I can try to mature into whatever I need to mature into. So let's take a moment from your nice, strong authority, and this could even be you, because that's the point that we are going to come to. Let's take a moment to imagine a nice, strong hug in which you just feel completely secure, and you can just let go, just receiving that energy. And instead now, let's take a moment to imagine hugging somebody in which you encompass them, and you give them your nurturing energy. Now let's take a moment to hug the version of you that wakes up in the morning. Now just imagine hugging the version of you that is running around during lunchtime. Let's take a moment to hug the version of you that is ready to eat the dinner, but dinner is not ready yet. So let's hug that hungry version. Let's take a moment to hug the version of you that is cozy with slippers and blankets and ready to go to sleep at night. Let's hug the version of you that wakes up at 3:30 a.m. taking a nice big inhale and exhale it all out. Slowly coming back. My intention is to share what is going on in my heart to the hearts of those people who is open to open to exchanging of ideas of the heart. I thank you so much, Constantine, for your sincerity, honesty, and for the love that you have brought to this podcast. We would normally go live, but because he's in Greece at this point and I'm here, it would be hard to go on live at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I appreciate his presence here. But 3 a.m. at night, in the morning.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to your book.
Appreciate that, man. Looking forward to giving you the first signed copy.
I'm lucky. Thank you so much, brother.
Love you, buddy. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
And in peace and blessings to everybody else out there. Good day.